morning, everybody. Hello. For those of you watching at home, my name is Heather O'Day, and I'm the music director of the Sonoran Desert Center for Spiritual Living here in Amado, Arizona. We meet outdoors every week at this beautiful, beautiful outdoor space we call the Oasis. Just a very short stroll from our sanctuary on our campus.
Good morning, everyone. So, smile behind your masks. I've talked to people that are having trouble this season being happy. So, let's take a moment and just think of a thing that you're grateful for. Just one thing among the thousands. So my name is Rosie Klein, and I am serving as your trustee today. On behalf of Rev Donna Maurer and your Board of Trustees, I am privileged to welcome you here to the Sonoran Desert Center for Spiritual Living outside in this beautiful setting. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are so truly welcome here. Here you will be validated, supported, and encouraged to be all that you were meant to be. Our vision statement is love in action every day in every way. We express this love by learning and living the principles of the science of mind. On the back of your program, you will find our declaration of principles. Please join me in reading them now. I believe there is an infinite intelligence operating throughout the universe. I believe this intelligent power is only good. I believe this intelligence expresses as me. I believe through my conscious use of this power, I create my life as happy, healthy, and complete. And so it is. So take just a moment to think about those words. I'd like to thank those who are always assist on these Sundays, John and Gray, and who set the and Bruce and Heather, and of course Wanda and Susan. Raise your hands if you did anything today. Let's see them up. Yay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very, very much. That's all for now. Please remember to turn off your cell phones so God won't be allowed to call during this service. Thank you very much for coming.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
Good morning. It's my privilege for me to be here. My name is Karen King, and I'm a practitioner here. And it's just wonderful to be able to be on this porch in this sun-dappled cathedral. It's that time of year where we see things, we see Christmas decorations coming out, and I'm noticing a lot of the nativity scenes and a lot of lights, and the beauty is everywhere. And I was cleaning out my closets, one of the gifts from COVID, time to clean out closets, and ran into an article that I wrote about 7 or 8 years ago, and I wanted to share it with you. Growing up, the Bible was merely a coffee table book where all the family births and deaths were recorded. I never read it because I didn't believe that all those stories could possibly be true. Most of the many churches my mother dragged me to translated it in such a literal way that I had very little respect for the book. Although there was one character that I really, really liked, Jesus. However, I did not believe that this man could get me to heaven and that I had to have to go through him to say my prayers. It wasn't until I attended lectures by Dr. Rocco A. Errico in later grown-up years that I began to look at the Bible with a whole new perspective. I started reading Errico's books and found that over the centuries, much had been lost in translation. Errico's knowledge of the customs, idioms, psychology, symbolism, and philosophy of Semitic peoples, as I read this, puzzling passages, that's a tongue twister. Puzzling passages became clearer and more relevant for me as a Western reader. The teaching ministry and parables of Jesus came alive as I had never read before. I learned that I had a direct line to God, but Jesus, my childhood hero, was merely an example of my human potential. Errico goes on to describe in his book, And There Was Light, Jesus, a Shemite, a man among men, and a teacher of teachers, continues to speak throughout all the ages. His human personality, his loving nature, and his simple teachings will live forever. They will always continue to enrich and embrace the hearts of the human family elsewhere. When we come to fully realize the unpretentious teachings of Jesus, all subtle forms of imperialism that advocate absolutism, such as infallible church, infallible Bible, infallible doctrines, or infallible anything, will no longer stand. Our human desire for infallibility is a lust for undisputed authority and absolute power. It seeks to dominate individual freedom and free thought. Violence, hatred, and prejudice have no place in the presence of compassion, truth, and harmony. Because those truth, compassion, and harmony are that which is of God's kingdom. Jesus taught God's sovereignty working in and through our ordinary, mundane living. The human Jesus was a simple man. His source was God. His spiritual insight continues to ignite the hearts and souls of men, women, and children the world over. So I feel a little guilty about getting rid of my nativity scene once I discovered New Thought, because we all have that same gift that this famous man had. Let's take a moment and think about how we can show our gift to others. We're wearing masks, but still we can do what we need to do in this season of light. And so I ask you to feel the light around you and breathe in the light around you. And embrace the knowledge that you remain an integral part of that light, that energy called God, universal spirit, the one, a higher power. And as we begin these words of affirmation, let my words be your words. My awareness of this spirit augments and resides within me with every breath I take. And in this moment, I radiate an energy that manifests beyond human understanding. It pulses and beats like one giant heart. I feel great joy as the holiday approaches, knowing that I can bask in the glow of God light just by admiring the beautiful light that shines from every candle, every window, every holiday decoration, every child's joyous face. I celebrate this season of light with family and extended family, knowing peace and harmony for all. I bless those around me as they bless me. I know that each human being present accompanies me on an exciting, healing, and uplifting spiritual journey. I feel great joy in this knowledge and with complete confidence turn these words over to law. God-light lingers in this experience. All I have to do is stand here in faith and witness the miracles. And so it is. This treatment stands as my gift to each one of you who's touched my life in this community of the heart. Find your way through this and future holidays by focusing on the inner over the outer. Bless you.
The pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. not the mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. Oh, light. I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. All light. I am light. All light. I am divinity defined. I am God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light. I am light.
Okay, good morning. And happy December. Yeah, can you believe that this is the end of 2020? I mean, yay, raw. And I've chosen reflections as our theme for the month of December because I like the fact that it's got two different meanings, and yet they seem to fit together for this time of the year. One means having serious thoughts or consideration, like reflecting on the meaning of life. And the other is the bouncing back of light, as the moon is the reflected light of the sun. Or at this time of year, as Karen spoke about, we see the reflections of the candles in the windows. So both of these definitions are appropriate to this season, because this is the time of the year when the soft lights of candles and the small tree lights take preference over our regular brighter light bulbs. And those candles are not limited to just Christmas. In both the Catholic and Christian religions, Advent is the time that marks the coming of Christ into the world. And the Advent wreath holds 4 candles, one lit each Sunday prior to Christmas, as a way of preparing for that coming of a new birth. And this Thursday, December 10th, our Jewish brothers and sisters light the first candle on the menorah, heralding the beginning of Hanukkah, which is called the Festival of Lights. And this is because when the temple was rededicated, there was only enough oil to light the sacred lamp for one night. And yet that small amount of oil lasted for 8 days until more could be obtained. So one of the 8 candles is lit each night to celebrate the miracle of the oil. And finally, Kwanzaa is celebrated by our African American brothers and sisters beginning on December 26th and ending January 1st. A total of 7 candles are lit in celebration of the African culture and the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. In Anamkara, the Book of Celtic Wisdom, John O'Donohue writes, "Candlelight befriends the darkness, and candlelight perception is the most appropriate form of light with which to approach the inner world." And I think his words show the correlation of the definitions of reflection as light and as deep concentration or contemplation. When we were meeting for Sunday meditations at the center, we had LED candles for anyone who wanted to light them, and there were always several burning when I walked in. And before the pandemic, every Sunday celebration began by lighting a candle to represent the light within us. So candles tend to call us to contemplation. So as you and I move into the holiday season, perhaps we should begin our personal meditation time by lighting a candle, recognizing the sacredness of both the soft light and our inner reflections upon the greater meaning of our lives. I've chosen "'Tis the Season" as my topic for this Sunday. And our minds go to that carol, "Deck the halls with boughs of holly, 'tis the season to be jolly." Well, duh, you know. we were talking this morning, and there's not a whole lot of us that feel jolly at this time of the year, you know. And I'm saddened. I don't feel jolly. I'm saddened to see the rise of the coronavirus cases across the nation and here locally. I watch the news and I see the healthcare workers who are exhausted beyond measure implore the television audiences to please wear masks and social distance. And while I know that there's a vaccine on the near horizon, I'm still shattered by the horrific toll the pandemic is taking on the world. Our season to be jolly is hampered by our inability to see family and friends because we feel the need to take necessary precautions to keep ourselves, our family, and our friends safe. So how do we find that jolly in the season when it's impossible? How can we make something significant out of a world that appears to be completely out of whack? And how can we reconcile this present moment as it is with what we wish it could be? Sufi mystic Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, in a prayer for the winter solstice, writes, "As we come toward the time of the winter solstice, and a few days later the celebration of Christmas, we are reminded once again of the primal mystery of darkness and light, and the light being born in the darkness. As the longest night of the northern hemisphere approaches, what is the inner meaning of this turning from the darkness towards the light and this wonder of divine birth? If we pause for a moment in the midst of our buying and consumption as a way to celebrate, if for an instant we can turn inward, we will find this greatest human mystery, the birth of light in the midst of darkness. This moment is a celebration of the spiritual nature of life and how within the heart and soul of each of us, this divine light is waiting to be born, to come into consciousness, come into our daily life." You know, he wrote these words several years before the pandemic, I think in 2012. But they make so much sense to me today. Several weeks ago I talked about holding the paradox between joy and suffering, between the light and the darkness, and about being grateful for the pain that breaks our hearts open to all that we are and to all that life is. So I think this is what our pandemic is doing for us. It's breaking us open. It's making us make choices and changes that we didn't want to make. But I think in the long run, there are going to be choices that will shift the world consciousness. So what better theme than reflections as this pandemic forces us to change our normal routines? So rather than being caught up in a shopping frenzy, in parties, in travel plans, in all the things that we have equated with jolly, we are thrown back on ourselves and asked to reflect on what truly matters. And it's through this inner contemplation of the mystery of life that we find joy in the midst of sorrow. Through darkness, we find that light that is inside of us, and it's this light that we carry into the world. Mr. Vaughan Lee goes on to say, anyone moved to turn inward into prayer, into their innermost heart, is drawn toward this mystery. And like the image of Christ being born in a manger, it is something as simple as it is wonderful. Many of us have felt it, if only for a fleeting moment, this divine presence within our life. We know what it brings, how it can turn our life around in an instant, change what seemed impossible to be changed. We aspire to remain in this place of inner receptivity, this place of waiting in the darkness and longing that belong to the heart's prayer. He says, we are both the darkness and the light, the sorrow and the joy. It is in the midst of the darkness that the light is born, that the longest night turns toward the sunrise. Our greatest human heritage is this soul's drama of darkness and light, of the divine being born into our life. This is where our prayer takes us, where the heart's longing draws us. This birth is the deepest fulfillment life can give us. Have you ever had an idea or a thought, and then suddenly you find it showing up everywhere? So Melinda told me that through her radical forgiveness work, everything she sees, hears, or reads seems to bring up forgiveness, And I've had that same experience. So much of what I'm reading about or praying about seems to bring up this same theme, that we are between stories. The one we have been living doesn't work, but the new one hasn't been fully born. So in the old story, we're caught up in materialism, in outside appearances, in the belief in separation, which puts me in competition with you. And I think that you and I and those who believe in our teaching and in similar ones are the harbingers of the new story. Because the new story is grounded in oneness, in love, in the belief that life is created as good, that life is sacred. Pardon me. So the pandemic has drawn us inside physically. We are asked to stay home as much as possible so that we do not catch or spread the virus. But it's also drawn us inside spiritually. It has compelled us to be alone, and in that time alone, so many of us are reevaluating what is truly relevant, what is truly meaningful, there. And that's the beginning of the new story. That's the beginning of it. We tend to take our life and everything about it for granted until something throws us off center. Something causes us to see how fleeting every moment is, how precious every breath is. Something causes us to wake up to each and every miracle, the tiniest to the hugest. And that's the gift that this pandemic has given us. We're coming to see that we are truly both the light and the darkness, that joy and sorrow are two sides of one coin, and we can't have one without the other, so we have to embrace both. And then by turning within, we are taken to a place, truly turning within, that inward prayer that he talks about. We are taken to a place of serenity, a place where the paradox of opposites is absorbed in the light of love. And finally, Mr. Von Lee says, but for the one who is drawn inward into prayer, there is an equally valuable work in holding a space for the divine, staying true within the heart and waiting. It is here from within the heart of each of us that the light of divine awareness will be born. It is from within the heart that the dark myth of materialism can turn into a story of divine birth, a reawakening to the knowing that all of creation is sacred. It is one living whole, and we are its guardians. In our heart and soul, we are each like Mary, holding the possibility for a birth that can change the world. The mystery of darkness and divine light belongs to each of us and to the world. We are the world waiting in the darkness, and we are the light waiting to be born. And we should not avoid being aware of what we are doing to the world, but we need also to turn toward the light that is waiting within our own heart and the heart of the world. We need to hold this sacred light in our hearts and our life. We need to be the prayer for the world in this time of darkness. So, perhaps this is not a season to be jolly, but I think it is a season to find the sacredness that lies within each and every heart and soul. I see it as a season of reflection, of prayer, a time when we can allow our hearts to be broken open to life's mystery. And it feels to me, as I talk with everybody, it feels to me that many of us are experiencing this deeper depth of understanding, of spiritual embodiment that we would not have found had things stayed normal. And it's from this spiritual depth that we can hold both the light and the darkness, until we can get to that point where we can sense that it is all good, and thereby reconcile the paradox of opposites. So you and I are harbingers of the new story of oneness. We already know that all is sacred, all is precious, because everything is God in its many guises. So as we move into this season of light, may we reflect upon our own divinity and the innate divinity of every person and every creation. May you and I each be the prayer for the world. And by being that prayer, let's know that we are not only harbingers of the new story, but we're birthing it as well. Thank you. Namaste. Light a candle for peace, light a candle for love, light a candle that shines all the way around the world, light a candle for me, light a candle for you. Let our wish for world peace will one day come true. Sing peace around the world. 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 Light a candle for peace, light a candle for love, light a candle that shines all the way around the world, light a candle for me, light a candle for you. Let our wish for world peace will one day come true. And I also want to say, because we do have our own YouTube channel. There may be people out there that are watching this on YouTube, that there's a place at the bottom of the YouTube link that can link a donation. So if you feel drawn to do that for us, we would appreciate that as well. Thank you. My gift goes forth to heal, prosper, and bless all that it touches. It is evidence of my conviction that God is a source and substance of my supply. I share generously of my good, knowing that it returns to me, multiplied abundantly, and so it is. And we do thank you for your generosity that allows us to maintain our center. And let's just take a moment to close this out in prayer. Just briefly, let's know that God is all there is. And that no matter what we may be feeling that seems like it isn't of God, we know that it indeed is sacred. That we are breaking open to a new depth of our being. And so we can have gratitude for this horrible virus that has good within it. I speak my word for anyone who is experiencing any kind of a challenge, and know that right where that challenge is the healing power of God. I give thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning, to share my love with my spiritual family, and to know that together we can get through all of this. And so it is.